Hello, geometry friends. Today we're going to talk about equations of circles. So a circle is defined by a center point and a radius. Center point and a radius. And all of the points that are on the circle are the radius length away from the center of the circle. Therefore, it's these two features that we need in order to write the equation of a circle. So here is your center or your equation for a circle in what we call center radius form. And the reason we call it center radius form is because you need to know the center of the circle and you need to know the radius length of the circle. And then you can write this equation that looks like this: the quantity of x minus h squared plus the quantity y minus k squared equals r squared. So you see, you've got in this equation, you have this h term that's right here, this value of h. Now, h is just representing a number, and so is k. K is representing a number, and those numbers are the coordinates for the center of the circle. Okay, so whatever the center point is of the circle, you're going to plug those in for h and for k. Now, we just had some experience talking about point-slope form of a line, and you remember how when you go from the coordinates of that point to the values in the equation, you see how there's a minus h here and a minus k. So you got to remember to just change your signs when you go from the point to the equation to the point, because you're negating that value. Okay, now the x and the y, those represents points that are on the circle. And then the last part is the r. And so the equation says that r has to be squared, but r represents the radius length. Okay, so whatever the length of the radius is, you're going to square it when you write the equation, but the radius length is the square root of r squared, because that, when you do the square root of a squared term, you just get the value of r, or the radius length. Okay, so let's look at a couple examples and see how I can write an equation based on some information that I'm given. So here we have a circle. The circle is graphed here, and we want to write the equation for that circle. So you can write this in other forms, but to know what the center is and the radius is, that would seem to make the most sense. So let's think about this for a quick second while I type in a couple of extra things. So when I'm trying to write the equation of a circle, I want to think about or figure out what the center is for this circle and what the radius length is. So you see, inside the circle, I drew what would be the diameter, because I can see that the circle goes through this point, and this point is on the circle. So the diameter would be the longest chord that goes through here. So the diameter length looks like it's up here at about 7, and then goes down here to like -5. So from 7 to -5, that this length right here is a length of 12. Okay, so if I cut that in half, then I would have 6 on either side, and there right here would be the point that represents my center point. So I know that my radius length is 6, and the coordinates for the center point is the coordinates of this point right here, which has an x value at -3 and a y value at +1. So my center point is x is -3 and y is +1. Okay, and now if I want to go ahead and write the equation of my circle, I'm going to consider that I know the x coordinate of the center point, I know the y coordinate of the center point, I know the length of the radius. So I'm going to kind of use this model to write my equation like this. It's going to go parentheses x minus h. H is the center, or the x coordinate. And since my x coordinate is negative, I'm subtracting a -3. Therefore, I am adding 3. So it's x plus 3. That quantity is squared. Then we have a plus sign that separates the x term with the y term. And then that's going to go like this, y. And then I'm going to have a minus y value. The y value is 1. It's +1, so it's going to be y minus 1. Quantity squared is equal to the length of the radius, 6 squared. Now you can write 6 squared, or you can write equals 36. Either one of these two numbers is equivalent, and therefore both of them are correct. So this would be the equation of your circle represented in this graph right here. Okay. Now, likewise, I have example 2, nice little multiple choice question here, where it says, here's the center of my circle. I want an equation for the circle whose center is -4, -6, and whose radius measures 8. So I have all these choices. But what I want to look for is, number one, I got to make sure I have a plus sign that's in between them. And all four choices do, so that does not help me eliminate any of my choices. Number two, I know my center is a -4 and a -6. X is -4, Y is -6. So like I did up here, if I'm subtracting the X term and I'm subtracting the Y term, I need to make sure I change both of those signs. So choice one is no good because that's negative and negative. Can't have that. The rest of them all do work. So it's got to be, it could be any one of these three choices because all of them have a plus sign and a plus sign. Now, the last thing is I'm looking at the radius length, which is 8. Choice 2 says equals 8. That's equal to the radius, but I don't want my equation equal to the radius. I want my equation to be equal to what the radius is squared. That's equal to 8 squared, not 8 times 2, but 8 squared is 64. So the answer to this should be choice 4. That is the equation for a circle whose center is -4, -6, and the radius length is 8.